It looks like I'm just sitting in thin air, right? Well, this is just one of 5 crazy chair illusions that I built that's gonna completely mess with your brain. Each one of these chairs has a hidden secret, and today I'm gonna build them all from scratch and reveal the magic behind these illusions. And the last chair, it's gonna blow your mind. Let's get started. I've always been fascinated with optical illusions, and not just because they look cool, but because they mess with your understanding of reality. And I've always been curious about how things work, how something impossible can be possible. So when I first saw a street performer floating in midair, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had to figure it out. And that one moment turned into a mission and a chance to take something that looks like pure magic and then build it with my own hands. So these aren't just chairs. These are illusions that challenge how we see the world. And if you're anything like me and love peeling back the curtain on how things really work, then I think you're really gonna enjoy this video. Also, I bought a pair of shoes that I have to completely destroy to build this project, which seems kind of sad, but I did find the most decent but also the cheapest shoes on Amazon I could find. Anyways, I'm gonna completely destroy this. First, I need the insole. This little contraption right here is called the shaper trace, but what it does is it allows you to draw out, a shape or trace something. You put this down over it, take a photograph, and it instantly transforms that into accurate vectors. It's not perfect, as you can see, but I'll be able to kind of fill in the gaps with a fit point spline. The idea here is that this piece becomes the new insole for that shoe, and then everything will get attached to that. And for the most part, I'm gonna be using 1/4 inch steel, but for the insole, I went with 10 gauge or about 1/8 of an inch. So that would just have a better chance of fitting down inside the shoe. And this needs 2 pivot points. Obviously one that I measure for at the knee, but it also needs to pivot forward at the ankle, but then lock into place as I sit back. Okay, foot fits down in there. That looks really good. This piece, it'll get welded on like so. That's looking pretty good. I am not confident this thing is gonna hold me. So I still need to add the upper braces and the connection at the knee pivot point, and I still need the connection piece so the upper and lower brace will be coplanar, because I need to add a stop in at a later step that's gonna support me once I'm in the sitting position. And the trick of the whole invisible chair is that there's a clip and a platform that I'll slide my foot into. It's gonna hold me static. It's also gonna support all of my weight, and then I'll be cantilevered out over that platform. And here's a quick diagram, because I know I'm a visual learner and I'm pretty sure everything I just said sounds like total nonsense. So to make the invisible chair work, I need to be able to just walk around, but then clip into the platform that supports my weight, and then that connection point in the platform itself is going to be hidden with a shag rug. And if you look at examples of street performers doing this trick, you'll see that they all have something similar to hide the mechanism that's holding them upright or making them float in air. And for my platform, I'm just using a 3/4 inch sheet of plywood, and then that plywood has a recess for a steel plate, and then attached to that steel plate will be the catch that my toe will hook into. I'm just realizing I only accounted for the outside, and I didn't account for this coming all up in my crotch. I need to cut that. Okay, once that's cut, I can weave in that 2-inch nylon webbing and test this thing out for the first time. My confidence level is a 0. What an absolutely wild contraption this is. Okay, here we go. Okay.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Oh, it bent. I might need to weld in some braces. Back to the drawing board. Okay, well, that went about as poorly as it could go, and I managed to destroy this piece in the process, which is fine. I'm gonna cut another one. I'm actually gonna cut it out of the same thickness of steel. This is 10 gauge. On the bottom here, I'm gonna run a piece that goes all the way down the length of the sole, and that's gonna prevent it from bending like that. Like, it totally makes sense why it bent. All right, thankfully, I can salvage most of this contraption, and I can also weld on some new longer brackets that's gonna give extra strength to the foot plate that bent in that last test. Even still, I decided to go ahead and test it out before removing that back plate, and there was considerable improvement. almost there. Yeah, something's got to change with all of this. These straps, they just don't work. Because now I'm gonna have to form some steel to hold the back of my leg. I guess the easiest way to figure out the exact shape and dimensions was to plot it all out with a few pieces of cardboard. I can just measure those, draw up some vector files, and then cut that out on my plasma CNC. And all those little notches you see give me a reference point for the relief cuts that I need to make so I can bend this into a radius that fits my leg. And I'm not even sure these relief cuts were necessary since this is 16 gauge material. That's pretty thin and it's pretty easy to bend into shape. And I possess in my shop all the blacksmithing tools one could possibly need. I have this old anvil, I have all the right hammers, I even have a forge. I mean, I never use it, but I have one. The only thing I don't possess are actual blacksmithing skills, but hey, this worked good enough, and really, I don't need it to be pretty. And as I cut into the sole of the shoe to allow room for the catch on the bottom of the metal sole, I had no idea how messy and noxious it was gonna be cutting into a rubber shoe sole. Like, seriously, do not do this. I had to air out my shop for a couple days to get rid of the odor, and then that melted rubber was all over my clothes, my hand, my angle grinder. But hey, at least it worked. Okay, I got that contraption on, and now it's time to test this thing out. I'll say the best part about this is how I can walk completely normal. This is exactly how I would walk in real life, and it doesn't hurt at all. Ow. All right, now I just gotta clip in my toe. Oh, there it is. All right, I'm clipped in. Moment of truth, here we go. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. Ah, it's working! Whoa, I just heard a noise. It's totally working. Like, it is a bit wobbly. Yeah, no, that's totally working. Okay, the true test is whether or not I can cross this leg over this one. I don't know. It's really stable just sitting like this, but it's not very stable side to side. Here we go. Oh, I'm doing it! Oh God, please don't fall. It's actually working. It's very unstable, but hey, it worked. Oh, God. Invisible chair. Not the most comfortable contraption in the world, but yeah, I'm gonna call that a win. Oh God, oh God. Hey, I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but I've been doing a little running and working out, and I'm down about 30 pounds. And if I was to ask you, what is the most important thing about running? Good form? No. Keeping your legs underneath your hips? No. Landing on your midfoot? Wrong again. The most important part of running is a good pair of socks, which brings me to today's sponsor, Bombas, which personally I love because every pair of socks purchased equals a pair of socks donated. Bombas has donated over 150 million items of clothing, and Bombas comes with a 100% happiness guarantee, which means if you don't like them, or more likely your dog eats them, you can exchange or return them for free. And while they make really comfortable socks, they also make really comfortable t-shirts and undies as well. And with summer coming up, it's officially sock season. Whether you're going on vacation or running a 5K, Bombas has got you covered. Bombas socks are exceptionally comfortable and help prevent blisters. See, I told you socks were the most important part about running. I snagged myself a pair of the week of Bombas midweight ankle socks for a sock drawer refresh, and these are perfect for everyday wear around the shop or when I'm exercising. I also grabbed my wife a pack of the Bombas Performance running socks, and she absolutely loves these. Feel good and do good with Bombas, knowing your purchase is doing some real good out there in the world. New customers get 20% off of their first purchase when you go to bombas.com/JohnnyBuilds and use code JohnnyBuilds at checkout. This chair looks as if it should tip over, yet somehow it doesn't. How is that possible? And how is it possible that this chair is sturdier than a normal chair? Well, I'm gonna build a version of this chair out of red oak, and today we're gonna find out. Now, the 9.5 degree chair was created by a Danish designer named Rasmus Fex, which is just an undeniably cool name. I mean, it sort of sounds like a Jedi or something. But anyways, that 9.5 degree chair sells for around $1,200 on various websites, but it's actually pretty easy to build for yourself. And I'm in no way advocating for you to do so. I think if you want this chair, you should go out and buy one. You know, that designer created something really beautiful, and I'm not trying to take anything away from that. And I think the beauty of this chair is that while it looks very askew, very non-functional, it's supposed to be designed in a way that makes it even sturdier than a traditional chair. Now, I have no idea if that's actually true, but we're gonna go ahead and find out. And what is true for my taste is not only is this a cool optical illusion created by that 9.5 degree lean, but it's also just a work of art and very elegant. And I think because of that, it can justify that $1,200 price tag. But in my case, it's only gonna require about $30 worth of lumber to build. And like I said, I'm gonna be using using red oak. And what's really interesting about building this piece is that while it sort of looks complicated, almost like there's way more going on than what there really is, it's actually just 4 cuts on the bottom of each leg that are cut at that 9.5-degree angle, and then everything else comes together with a more common 90-degree angle, and that makes most of the joinery pretty straightforward. And I'm just going to be using the domino and loose tenon joinery where I can, and I'll be using one of the smallest domino tenons that they make, so these are in no way structural. These are just for alignment. The strength is going to come from the wood glue joints, and I think a lot of folks don't actually realize how strong wood glue is. Like, today's wood glue is actually a bit of a modern marvel, and it creates a bond so strong that the wood itself is more inclined to break rather than the glue seam. So this should be sturdy enough, but I guess we'll have to see. And that panel that I just glued up, that's going to be for the seat pan, and in order for that to sit at 90 degrees to the floor and actually be a working chair, I have to cut opposing 9.5-degree angles on either side of the panel. And because it has an angle on it, I didn't want to risk having a domino tenon cut through the surface of the panel. It was getting really close, so I'm just going to be skipping dominoes here and only using wood glue. But like I said, this should be more than enough to be structural. All I have to do is focus on the alignment as I glue it in place, because again, I don't have those domino tenons to do that for me. Okay, once the main frame of the chair is built, there are 3 cross members that finish out the chair. Now, these are 90-degree angles, but since the bottom of the chair is already cut at that 9.5-degree angle, the cross members are going to appear as if they are the angle piece, when in reality, they're sitting 90 degrees to the rest of the chair frame. And then I'm just going to copy the finish from the 9.5-degree chairs that I've seen online that appear to be painted or stained black. And one of my favorite finishes is this black Enduro Poly from General Finishes, because I think it takes a mediocre lumber like red oak and then elevates the best part of that wood, which is its grain pattern. And with that, this chair is done, and we can find out just how strong it actually is. All right. This chair is done, and I think it looks every bit as good as the ones that you see online. But the first test is, can I sit in it without it tipping over? Let's find out. A little nervous. It's very dainty. Oh, that's actually really, really sturdy. Look, I'm rocking all the way over to the side with the lean. Whoa, I almost went too far that time. That's surprising how sturdy it is and how comfortable it is. Like, this thing is awesome. But I think the true test, can I stand on this corner without it tipping over? Let's find out. Why do I do dumb stuff like this? Okay, here we go. Please don't die. Oh, God. Okay, that might be a step too far, but honestly, I think this chair is awesome. I think it's just a really beautiful piece. I think it came out really good, and I'm gonna call this one a big old win. So all of these chairs in this video are someone else's design, and for that reason, I wanted to come up with my own design, so I give you the split chair. Named that for obvious reasons. But spoiler warning, as easy as this chair should have been, it did not go well. Let's dive in and I'll show you why. I've been holding on to some really nice wood for a couple years now, and this is the perfect project for it. This is Clara Walnut Burl, and I was actually the highest bidder for this on an Instagram auction site called Worldwide Burl. And it's been a couple years, but if I remember correctly, I paid somewhere around $400 for this piece. And it's so beautiful that I can't mess it up, because what I thought was gonna be the easiest build of the whole bunch presented some challenges that I did not foresee. And I ended up having to rethink everything about this particular build, but you know what, more on that here in a minute. Let's go ahead and jump into a 3D model to show you what I was trying to do with this piece. And the goal is to make this chair look like it's completely split down the middle and the legs aren't even touching the ground. And the way I plan on doing that is using Total Boat Fathom epoxy, which is a 2-inch deep pour epoxy that takes about a week to cure. And this ensures that it cures extra clear without any bubbles, which is what I'm gonna need to sell that illusion. And I had to build 7 different forms for all the chair parts. 5 of those long skinny forms, and I'll be able to get all the legs and stretchers out of those. And then 2 more forms, a big one for the seat pan and a smaller one for the seat back. And I've been working with epoxy for 7 years now. And I think at this point, I know what I'm doing and I know all the best practices and how to make a form that doesn't leak. But as I poured this epoxy, things got out of hand pretty quickly. Now, the first layer you see me brushing on is just a seal coat to prevent air inside the wood escaping while the epoxy cures. And after a day, I come back to do the first epoxy pour. And just like pouring epoxy, I feel like I've got that form building process down and I rarely have to deal with leaks. But right away, I did spring a small leak. And at the time, I'm thinking, okay, this isn't a big deal. It's just a tiny leak. I can seal this off with some caulking and then keep on pouring and everything's going to be fine. And other than having a couple pieces float up on me during the pour, this seemed to go pretty well. That is until I came back the following day to check on everything and found my worst nightmare waiting on me. Oh, that is bad. What a disaster. Alrighty, so this is what I'm walking into the next morning. Wow. That's about 2 gallons of epoxy on the floor, all over my workbench, and all over my really nice turbo vise. I hope that's not ruined. And I tried to clean up as much as I could, but I was pretty confident at this point that I had destroyed this workbench and that vise beyond repair, but nothing to do than to just keep pushing forward. And with that epoxy gelled up, at this point, I shouldn't have any additional leaks. So I went ahead and poured more epoxy on top of that. And then these epoxy forms sat here for 2 weeks curing while I worked on other chairs and had other stuff going on. So I'm expecting to come back to fully cured epoxy and be ready to go. And as I demolded all these parts, everything was looking really good. I mean, I do have a lot of cleanup and polishing to do, but you know what, that's just part of the process. And the first thing I did was run the pieces through my drum sander to get them to the final thickness. And then for the seat pan, I decided to go ahead and carve a seat scoop over on the CNC. And then after that's done, I can sand, polish, and assemble everything. And when I went back to the CNC to get the seat pan, that's when I noticed something really odd. Oh gosh, I have no idea what happened, but the epoxy on the seat pan did not cure. I can actually press my finger down into it and it's very rubbery. These pieces, this was the backrest and this would have been like legs and stretchers, fully cured. This one, not so much. The problem is I don't have any more of this epoxy. I don't have any more of this lumber. It's gonna take me a lot of time to get all the supplies in. So I'm left with one choice, just to scrap the split chair and build something completely different. So this is what I've come up with. So I've never had this happen to me. Maybe the mix ratio was off. Maybe I stored it in temperatures that were too warm. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I've been using Total Butt Epoxy for 7 years now, and I've never had this happen. So it's definitely user error, I think. And the more I think about it, I think I might have actually swapped part A for part B and vice versa. I'm not exactly sure, but that's the only scenario that makes any sense. So because of that, it leaves me in a really tight spot. I don't have the time or the materials to build another chair like this, which means I'm gonna have to do something that I did not want to do and skip trying to build one of my own designs. And that brings me to the shadow chair. This is another really beautiful chair that creates the optical illusion that it's standing on only 2 legs. But in reality, it's cantilevered over a thick steel plate that acts as its shadow and gives stability to the chair. And it was created by a designer out of London named Christopher Duffy. And this is another example of functional art. I mean, it's just really simple, really elegant. You can actually purchase one of these for about $1,900 US. And again, I think this is one that's worth every penny, just like that 9.5 degree chair. But I am gonna put my own twist on it, or at least I thought I was, and I'm gonna try to build it in only 2 days, or at least I thought I was, because honestly, I'm running out of time on all these projects. And my original plan, I was gonna cover this chair with a few thousand little mirror tabs to give it a disco ball-like appearance. But those tabs were total garbage, so I scrapped that. But at the time, that's why I'm just gluing this up and not really caring if those plywood edges are exposed. So now my best bet is to go ahead and paint this chair, but first I'm gonna use some Bondo to fill in all the gaps and hopefully hide any of the plywood edge grain. Off screen, I painted it, and again, I ran out of time, but you know what? Here she is. This is 1/2-inch steel plate, so this sucker is not light. Okay. There we go. this is my take on the Shadow chair, and honestly, I think this is really cool. It's got that steel plate that acts as a cantilever that makes it look like it's only a two-legged chair. The only thing is, I haven't sat in this yet because I'm scared that the 3 screws on each side is not gonna be enough to hold me. I know if I sit right here over the legs, I should be good. That's super, super stable. What I'm really nervous about is sitting all the way back and putting all that pressure this way and then this breaking. But we just gotta do it. Here we go. Oh my God, that's scary. Dude, I mean, that is crazy sturdy. That's awesome. I know the comments I'm gonna get are gonna be, hey, it's too short. You're right, it's too short. I wonder if I can like lift myself up like this. Oh, I heard a little bit of cracking. I think this one is a big old win. All right, I just showed you a two-legged chair. I've shown you a chair without any legs, but what about a one-legged chair? Let's get started. So this is my take on the Peter Bristol design cut chair. This is another cantilever chair that looks like a traditional four-legged chair, but then someone took a couple slices out of it. Way less practical than the last 2 chairs, but still a somewhat functional chair, and I'm gonna be putting my own twist on this one as well. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, this chair is 99% steel fabrication, which means more welding, and I love welding. I mean, I'm no expert, but thankfully you don't have to be. It's just a really cool process to stick 2 pieces of metal together, and I think it's a lot more instantly gratifying than woodworking. You know, woodworking will always be my first love, but welding is not too far behind, and I remember back when I first started my YouTube channel, there was a bunch of the larger maker channels that I would watch that were all sponsored by Lincoln Electric. And you know, Lincoln Electric was always this dream sponsor for me. And then about a year ago, Lincoln Electric reached out and signed on to be one of my sponsors. And that was just a really good feeling, and it felt like a huge milestone for my business. So if you've ever thought about getting into welding yourself, I've got some links for you down below. And it never fails. Every video where I weld something, someone complains about me damaging their eyes because I guess they believe that watching a video of welding is the same thing as welding without a mask. And of course that's not the case unless you have some sort of super secret military grade television set. But anyways, I said I wanted to try something a bit different for my version of the cut chair, and my design is going to be this sort of ripped up chair aesthetic that maybe looks like it survived a bear attack, and that's why I cut in all those jagged edges on the seat pan. And having built a bunch of chairs now, I've settled on 7 degrees being the most comfortable angle of lean for the seat back, and then matching that 7-degree angle on the back legs, and that gives it sort of that classic chair look while also widening the chair base, and on a typical chair makes it nice and sturdy, but this is no typical chair. This chair only has 1 leg that makes contact with the support platform, and I had to custom make a length of square tube that's going to fit inside the 2-inch square tube that I use for the chair frame, and this is going to allow it to slide down onto the support base. And of course I need to cut that same 7-degree angle as the back legs. And just like with the invisible chair, this one gets a large plywood platform to allow for the chair to be supported and cantilevered above this. And I have no idea what I'm going to do with all these chairs when I'm done. I mean, I can't imagine anyone would actually want this particular chair in their home, especially when so many folks are scared of any part of a piece of furniture that they could bump their shins into. But you know what? I would totally give this away if anyone is interested. I would actually give away all 5 of these, just so long as you're willing to sign a waiver saying you're not going to sue me if you cut yourself or hurt yourself on one of these chairs. The catch is you have to be willing to pick them up here locally in Oklahoma City or arrange for shipping. All right, I painted this chair with a black and gold color scheme, but this looked like total garbage, and it led to me scraping off all that paint and starting from scratch. And I'm just gonna stick with the same red and black theme that I have throughout the rest of the video. And the big question when I'm done is whether or not this is gonna support my weight. Now, I think just sitting on it, it should be fine, but in order to match that original cut chair, I need to be able to stand on the front corner of it like this photo and have it support me, and I'm way less confident about that, but you know what? Let's go find out. It's pretty wobbly. I don't know. Let's see if it'll sit. Okay. All right. If I sit to the back, not bad. I mean, it's a little wobbly. Let's try sitting on the edge. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. Look how much it's flexing. That's crazy. But the true test is, can I stand on it right here? Oh, let's try back here first. Okay. Whoa, holy cow. I'm gonna stand right here and hopefully I won't die. Oh God, this is terrifying. Holy moly. Please don't break. Please don't break. Oh! I can stand there for like a half second. Definitely not as sturdy as the original cut chair by Peter Bristol, but man, what a fun build. All right, this final one is my favorite of the whole video. This is the Bouchet chair illusion created by French psychologist Jean Bouchet in the 1960s. We're gonna go ahead and dive in. I'm gonna show you how to build one and how this all works. All right, this last chair is all about the illusion and is in no way functional as a normal chair. And for that reason, I'm gonna build this one on the cheap, mostly out of 4x4s, some 2x4s, some plywood. And the trick is building the chair in two parts. Now you have the foreground base, which I'm gonna build with 2" by 2" sticks. And in order to make those, I'm cutting down some 4x4s. And then the background seat, which I'm gonna be making mostly out of plywood. But it's important for this chair that all those proportions match up. And as far as I know, no one has supplied any dimensions for this chair, so I'm just kind of making my best guess based on what I've seen. And in order to test this, I modeled it up in Shaper 3D and then changed the perspective to match the camera angle to see if everything would look right. And it worked in the 3D modeling software, so I'm about 60% confident it's gonna work in real life, and I'm employing what I call the quick and dirty construction method. And basically that means I'll use whatever technique makes this come together the quickest and most efficient. And for me, that's just using glue and screws and then hiding all those screws with dowels. And that's it for the foreground chair base, and I can switch to building the background portion of this chair, which consists of the seat and the seat back. And again, the quick and dirty method of building this is making the seat out of plywood and then stacking that up 2 layers. And don't worry about those exposed plywood edges because I'm gonna come back and frame it out using some 2x4s in the next step. I cut the 2x4s in half lengthwise, and then just like when you're building a picture frame, I cut in 45-degree miters to wrap it around the plywood. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and any gaps are gonna get hidden with paint. And I think one of the coolest parts about this particular chair illusion is that it wasn't designed by a furniture designer, but rather a psychologist in the 1960s, and I think that fact right there speaks to the real purpose of this chair. Again, not to be a functional piece of furniture, but rather to trick the mind into believing an object is much smaller than it actually is by using forced perspective. And check out this old footage that I found. I mean, it's pretty cool, but definitely creepy. And it's kind of like watching an old episode of The Twilight Zone. And there's just something sort of unsettling about all of this. Something really trippy about this illusion when done well. And I actually posted this little video here of me testing it out on Instagram. And I was amazed at how many replies that I got from folks that couldn't really figure out what was going on. I mean, this looks like garbage right here. And I just used my Ron Swanson cardboard cutout for perspective, but you know, it sold folks on the illusion. And doing that quick camera test showed me that it still needed some refining as that back leg was too tall and breaking the illusion. So I went ahead and cut that off. And I thought I had it all dialed in and ready to shoot the outro. But what I didn't realize is that the illusion was off a little bit. I mean, it's really hard to tell when you're just looking through the viewfinder on the camera, but I shot all this footage and realized that it still wasn't quite there and this needed some further refining. I think I've got it really close. And what I'm discovering on trying to set this up, while it worked in my 3D model, making it work in the real world is a lot more difficult because if that illusion is broken at all, it just throws the whole thing off. You know, honestly, I'm not gonna be able to tell until I take this footage out of the camera and look at it on my computer because you just really need to see it on something bigger than just the viewfinder to tell if the illusion is working. But one thing I do already notice is I do need to cut those legs more. I might even cut that rear leg off all the way, but I think if I can get it just dialed in perfectly, this might actually work. All right, there it is, the Bouchet chair illusion. But in order to make this illusion work, I need a second person. So let me bring in my lovely assistant, my wife, Katie. Now, the thing about the Bouchet chair is it's all about forced perspective, something they use in the movies quite a bit. As a matter of fact, if you've ever seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy, that's how Peter Jackson made the actors playing the hobbits look so much smaller than everyone else in that movie. I think if you have a photo booth or if you're a photographer, you definitely need to build yourself a Bouchet chair. It's just really, really cool. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button. Also, let me know down in the comments below which one of these 5 chairs is your favorite, and I'm giving all 5 of these chairs away. Let me know down in the comments if you want one of these chairs. The only catch is you got to be willing to pick it up here in Oklahoma City or arrange for shipping. I've got some crazy builds on the way that I just started. One is going to be a table that I promise you is unlike any other table you've ever seen, and the other, I'm building a Lord of the Rings inspired house for my cats. You're going to want to get subscribed so you don't miss all of that, and I'll catch you here in the next one.